On September 8th, the African Union presented to its mission the list of candidates for the upcoming election of the chairperson and deputy chairperson. The nominations are expected to take place during the 34th ordinary sessions of the Assembly in January and February 2021. On this special edition of Our Voices, we'll take a look at the process to the top leadership of the continent and what's at stake come 2021. As the world's attention is focused on the American election, another important vote for a key position in Africa is generating controversy: the election of the African Union Commission Chair. VOA's Anita Powell reports from Johannesburg, South Africa.
African Union Commission Chairman Moussa Faki Mahamat is running unopposed for re-election as Africa's top diplomat. But that uncontested race has provoked outrage from observers of the 55-member African Union, which they say is failing to represent the needs of the continent's 1.3 billion people. Critics of the Ethiopia-based organization are lobbying to postpone the vote at least 6 months to let more candidates come forward. The author of a petition by the Coalition of Supporters Unions of Africa says the AU did that 4 years ago, when there were only 3 candidates for that seat. He spoke to VOA via Google Hangouts.
How come that 4 years down the line, at the same time, we are having only 1 candidate, and people are telling us that that is representative enough? If 3 wasn't representative enough, how can 1 be representative enough?
Analyst Liesl Louw-Vaudran of the Institute for Security Studies says this vote, cast by African heads of state, not by the general population, is important.
The AU Commission Chairperson also has to represent the continent on the world stage, basically, when it comes to Africa's relations with the European Union, with China, with the US, with the UN. And he has quite a lot of leeway, I would say.
That's why, says Pan-African activist Daniel Mbonu, it's critical to get a leader who truly represents the continent. He supports the petition to delay the vote. He spoke to VOA from Nairobi via Google Hangouts.
He has displayed a lot of incompetency in the organization and running of the AU, of the African Union organization. At the same time, he has been unable to address issues that are facing people of African descent around the world. And there have been allegations of massive fraud at the African Union, corruption, nepotism.
So if not Mahamat, then who? Critics say one candidate, the AU's former ambassador to the U.S., a Zimbabwean national, has been sidelined after she was removed from that position last year. Both critics also claim the AU has been heavily influenced by former colonial leader France. Since 2002, 4 of the 5 commission chairpersons have hailed from Francophone nations.
Just by the uproar that came around after, the purported sack of Madame Auriane Chiombori-Quao. Now, come to think of it, Madame Auriane Chiombori-Quao herself has filed an application, and we have a situation where her nomination has gotten lost at the AU headquarters. And that is very, very strange.
The AU has not been able to meet in person in recent months because of the global pandemic. The petition to delay the election has gotten 16,000 signatories, Ababresa says. If granted, it would move the vote into early 2021. Anita Powell, VOA News, Johannesburg.
VOA reached out several times to the office of the African Union Commission spokesperson, the office in charge of communication, as well as the office of the Chief of Staff for the Chairman Mohamed Faki via phone calls and emails, but no response. We have to take a quick break. When we return, I'll speak to organizations that are asking for the deadline of the application for the commissioner to be extended. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Being part of Our Voices is about more than just sitting here and talking about women's issues. It's about listening to them
and bringing their opinions to the table and making sure their voices are heard.
Because our lived experiences, our stories, and our voices will help shape the next generation.
Now in Ghana, the KWAME NKRUMA Ideology Institute adds its voice to the numerous petitions to extend the nomination deadline for the commissioner position. I spoke via Skype with the executive director of the Institute and began by asking him what provoked this organization to begin this petition.
Our organization is taking a huge inspiration from our founding fathers. All those who really thought it wise a point in time in the history of Africa to ensure that we come together as a body. We really think that what they stood for and what they fought for is not what is reflected today, contemporary. We think that there's been some kind of problems, infractions at the AU corridors in terms of the current nomination for the African Union chair. And so we think that the processes towards that hasn't been fairly executed. And so there's the need for us to add our voice to the numerous voices out there to ensure that the right thing is done. And so we have come together with other organizations like the Global Pan-African Network, the All-African People's Organization, Coalition of Supporters Union of Africa, and many more. The 1.3 billion Africans must begin to talk.
Now, in your view, why don't we see other names of qualified candidates coming from the different regions of the continent? And of course, the diaspora, which is the 6th region of the continent. Why don't we see more candidates?
That is a big question that should begin to awaken all of us. Because we have the 5 regions you have mentioned, including that of the diaspora, that makes it the 6th region. We cannot allow the position of the African Union Commission chair to go unopposed without being contested, because we believe that we have qualified, competent people from these regions.
From what we gather, Ghana had submitted a candidate for the commissioner position, Dr. Mohamed Chambers, known for his experience. After 2 days of submitting his candidacy, from what we gather, he pulled out. What do you make of that?
In the petitions, we have asked the same question and waiting for a response. The right person to explain to the 403 million people within the sub-region is Dr. Mohamed Chambers. He has to explain why he withdrew at last minute. We don't just understand, and we still want answers to that. The reason, because we've been told that he went to Chad, and in consultation with Chad, he withdrew. What consultation went on? What consultation went on?
Read once again your petition. The heading of your petition says that Africa is not for sale. Could you elaborate on what you mean by that, and whom does it seem that the African continent is being sold to precisely?
The AUC say, the commission say, it's all about who has the key, who will have the key to the African Free Continental Trade Area, right? And once you have that key, that influential key, you are in position to decide whether you are going to use that key to the benefit of Africans or not. That is where our challenge is. We want a competent person at the AU who will serve the interest of the millions upon millions of women who are suffering in Africa, who are having difficulties in healthcare.
You do not see that, Mr. Mohamed Faki. You do not see that.
Look, the important thing is that this year has been penciled down as silencing the guns in Africa. What has the AU done so far? And so we believe that those who have proven their worth, those who have come out to speak and pursue issues relevant to the growth and betterment of the African people must be given the chance. We don't have confidence in Faki. That is His Excellency Faki. We don't have confidence in him with regard to he being the AU chair. He doesn't measure up to our forefathers, those who stood and fought for the AU, for which he is now the chair. If not, why should you make that position unopposed? Why does he want to be there? That amounts to a forceful takeover of the African Union. And so we are appealing to all the African heads of states that they should use their sovereign authorities given to them by the people at the grassroots to ensure that the right thing is done.
We also contacted Mohamed Chambers to find out what consultation went on with Chad, if any, but were unsuccessful as he did not return numerous phone calls and voice messages. Now, the vision of the African Union seeks an integrated, prosperous, and peaceful Africa driven by its own citizens, represented by a dynamic force on the global arena. I sat down with Yohannes Mezgebe, who held several positions at the African Union, including the coordinator of the African Leadership Academy. While on a trip here in Washington, he tells us the importance of the youth in fulfilling the vision of the African Union, as well as his take on the current controversy on the election of the commissioner.
Many young people, and also African citizens, feel like the organization does not represent their aspirations and yearnings. The organization is disconnected from their life, day-to-day life. It's not on the ground. Unfortunately, if you were to ask them if they know the Department of Political Affairs, Social or Economic Affairs of the African Union, they would not tell you. Why? Because the presence of the African Union in each and every one country across the continent is not really felt.
It has to come from a systemic place before the youth can actually feel part of the system, part of the African Union, to realize the vision of the African Union.
When Madam Zuma drafted the Agenda 2063, she made sure to consult the young and emerging African leaders from across the continent to give their inputs in the document, because you cannot have a vision for the next 50 years without consulting the evaluators of the Africa in 50 years. So for Moussa Faki, what he needs to be doing is to ensure that each department at the African Union Commission has youth desk that would be the eyes and the ears of the young people in every African country. That has not been happened, but that was decided by Madam Zuma's time.
You are the person who, in 2016, started the first ever debate for the African Union Commissioner during the elections. And it was broadcasted all throughout Africa. We are seeing that now we have only one candidate. Do you fear that there will not be any debates? And what does that mean?
You remember on the 2016s, we only had 3 candidates for the post of the chairperson. There was a decision to postpone that election because none of the 3 candidates were able to get 2/3 of the votes of the assembly. Then we had 5 candidates. So when we had that debate, we were able to bring the 5 candidates to present their manifesto and give an opportunity for the citizens to actually engage them, the opportunity to know who has what and how do they see the challenges of our continent for the next 4 years. What is their objective? What are the priorities for the next 4 years?
Now, so being inside the African Union, the current controversy that are going on right now suggesting that there are efforts to make sure that the incumbent Moussa Faki is unopposed. What do you make of that?
You remember the recommendation by President Paul Kagame when it comes to the election of the African Union Commission. He said the chairperson of the African Union Commission has to be elected through a robust and transparent governance system whereby the candidates, it doesn't say candidate, it says the candidates,
Many.
more than one, hopefully 5, because we have 5 regions in the continent, at least we have 5 candidates. The candidates to present their manifesto to the public.
Now, as youth on the continent, what can be done as a way forward in making these elections more credible?
I call upon the young people and African citizens throughout the continent and the diaspora to put pressure on African heads of states and governments, particularly on President Ramaphosa of South Africa in his capacity as the chairperson of the African Union, to reconsider and reopen the submission for application. Now, South Africa, whose president is the chairperson of the African Union, have 2 candidates for the post of the deputy chairperson, and both of them are male, which means if Faki Moussa, who is only an opposed candidate for the post of chairperson, is elected as the chairperson of the African Union Commission, these 2 candidates for the post of deputy chairperson of the commission are automatically disqualified. So how are South Africans knowing that put two male candidates for the post of deputy chairperson when they know that they would be automatically disqualified. So I think it is in the interest of the whole continent, including South Africa, that we reconsider the application and invite qualified African citizens to participate in this process.
We have to take a quick break, but before we go, we want to remind you to visit our social media pages. Our Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter's handle is at VOA Our Voices. You can also send us a message on WhatsApp. Our number is right there on your screen. When we return, we'll speak to Dr. Chiombori-Quao, the former African Union ambassador to the United States, who says her application was blocked. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Welcome back, you with Our Voices. We're discussing the leadership of the African continent. One woman says her application to the position of the Commission Chair has been blocked and is calling for the nomination process to be democratic. She's none other than the former African Union Ambassador to the United States, Dr. Auriane Chiombori-Quao. Madam Ambassador, it's a great pleasure to once again have a conversation with you.
Thank you for having me and welcome home.
Before we discuss the upcoming AU elections, we also know that next year will be a key year where the implementation of the free trade agreement will begin, a key component of the 2063 agenda for Africa. Could you explain to us what is at stake there for Africa when it comes to this agreement?
What I would like people to understand is that this is a monumental decision that was agreed upon by the African heads of states in 2018.
Establishing the Continental Free Trade Area.
African Continental Free Trade Area basically says no more shall 55 different little-bitty countries go to the world stage to negotiate for trading purposes with the big boys. Africa is going to go to the world stage as one customs union. It's something that our Pan-African fathers had hoped to accomplish when they met back in 1963, when they created the Organization of African Unity, which was a compromise decision. They were not able to accomplish the building of an Africa that spoke with one voice. It took us from 1963 to 2018 to agree at a consensus of a decision that we can all speak with one voice as one Africa, one continent, going towards one destination. It is going to be controlled by the African Union Commission Chair. 3 weeks ago, Chairman Moussa Faki Mahamat, who is the current chairperson of the African Union Commission, President Nana Addo of Ghana handed him the keys to the African Continental Free Trade Area Secretariat. That means now Chairman Moussa Faki Mahamat has the keys to the continent.
If
he's nominated for another 4 years.
What are the specifics of those keys in terms of how much power does the commissioner has in terms of the agreement?
You got to understand the whole purpose of having the African Continental Free Trade Area is to have an Africa that speaks with one voice. We are now going to be talking about how do we feed, house, clothe, move 1.27 billion people. Not how do we feed Nigerians? How do we feed Kenyans? How do we feed people from Botswana? We are saying, what do 1.27 billion people need?
So he'll be able to decide the railroad contracts.
The Cape to Cairo Highway, for example. The approval will go through Moussa Faki. The Cape to Cairo Highway is something that's needed. The shipping lines all around the continent, 90% of the trade, intra-Africa trade, is via maritime. Contracts to do all that on a continental level are going to come through the AFCFTA. And the chairman of the African Union Commission has got to be somebody who understands why this decision is monumental, why it is important to finish the unfinished business of our Pan-African fathers and finish it the right way. We simply cannot afford to give the keys of the African Continental Free Trade Area to the wrong person, someone who's more likely to sell us off, to sell Africa off And so that's why whoever is going to be the next chair of the African Union Commission is going to be somebody who's Pan-African, somebody who understands that Africa's wealth is our children's inheritance, that we must defend Africa's wealth by any means necessary.
So let's discuss the leadership of the continent, the top position of the continent. Many people, civil society organizations are voicing concerns about the election process happening for the top position of the continent. I have with me here looking at about 4 petitions that are happening on the continent, in different parts of the continent. 2 things there. We hear that you did submit an application for the top position. Is that correct? That's also, correct. How was the process and experience in submitting that application, and what was your outcome?
Let me start by letting you know that I actually wasn't going to apply. Why? The deputy chairperson of the African Union was going to run for the chairmanship position, and I was going to support him. I don't particularly care about being the chair of the African Union Commission. I just want somebody there that we can work with, somebody who understands the importance of the African Continental Free Trade Area, and that first and foremost, we must defend Africa by any means necessary. We must defend that which belongs to our children. And I felt Deputy Chairperson Kwesi could do that. So I was willing to support him. Unfortunately, the president did not nominate him. Instead, he nominated somebody else who was president of Ghana. He nominated somebody else who was actually very qualified. And I would have been quite happy. Mohammed Chambers, Ibn Chambers. I was quite comfortable supporting him. He was nominated on the last day for Ghana to submit his name to the ECOWAS region. On a Monday, he was nominated. On Wednesday, he sent a text message to a friend who had congratulated him to say, "You are the nominee from Ghana for West Africa." And he responded, according to the article that was later published, by saying, "Well, the congratulations are short-lived. I have decided to withdraw my nomination after consulting with Chad." Wow. The word on the street is something happened. There were some shenanigans that were played, particularly from Chad. And of course, as you know, the chairman of the African Union is from Chad. So the question is, who in Chad did he consult with? Was it the president of Chad? Was it Moussa Faki Mahamat?
So to your assessment, it wasn't his choice to pull out?
And I'm simply going to speak about the word on the street. The word on the street is he may have been paid and enticed to pull out. But I don't have any proof for that, but that's the word on the street. Now, we are now down to 2 weeks before the deadline for submission of the applications to the AU. We decided I should jump in and see if I can submit my application out of SADC. Because at this point, it was clear Faki is not being opposed. So I quickly got in touch with my president of Zimbabwe. I submitted my documents, and a minister was assigned to work with the process of getting me to be nominated by SADC. It's my understanding on 2 separate occasions, a vote was scheduled. The first one was cancelled and rescheduled. And on the second, again, that vote was cancelled this time.
So we don't have somebody from the West, we don't have somebody from the North, we don't have somebody from the Central. Now the Southern Africa region isn't sending an application.
They did not vote for me. They did not meet because they had to meet in order to officially nominate me as a region. So it is that meeting that was cancelled.
So you believe that there's also some play there to block your nomination?
It's pretty clear that every effort is being made to keep getting opposition for Faki, because they know, and I'm going to be very serious, honest with you, they could put a monkey to run against Faki and the monkey would win. They know that.
Now, if a positive response comes from these petitions that we're hearing that are coming up from different places on the continent, is it your hope that South Africa, your region, SADC, and specifically President Cyril Ramaphosa, will indeed this time submit your candidacy?
They really don't have a choice. They need, if people apply, they must at least submit the nomination. Blocking the nomination before the vote is just wrong. It's wrong, it is undemocratic. But I also hope that we can get more people. Let's get more candidates. Every position has an average of 8 to 10 people contesting for that position, from deputy chairperson and all the commissioners, except Faki.
And so you did mention about the African heads of state. Do you have a message for them?
I have a simple message to the African heads of states. I would like to remind them of the millions of babies that are going to bed with an empty stomach tonight, of the millions of women who are dying today while giving birth to another child, of the millions of the unemployed youth who are committing murders. This one is so painful, out of desperation and despair. We have an opportunity to do something. This moment is a special moment. It is a time that we might understand that it is a time that we have been waiting for centuries. So allowing Chairman Faki to run unopposed for the chairman of the African Union Commission is a serious betrayal of the children of Africa. I do hope that you are not going to allow that to happen.
So in the 4 years he's been in power, has he done anything right?
None. Not that I know of. Absolutely nothing. I don't even know what his legacy is going to be, which is why it is mind-boggling that they would want to give him 4 more years.
In the recent interview we had, you just actually reminded me, you made an analogy about Queen Yaa Asantewaa of Ghana, who fought the British to preserve and to protect the golden stool, which represented the soul of the people. Come 2021 in February, do you think, or do you deeply fear that the African golden stool will be taken, will be stolen if the right leader doesn't come to play?
The African golden stool has already been handed over to the chairman of the African Union Commission. And if he remains the chairman of the African Union Commission, I can tell you very comfortably that the golden stool will be gone.
Thank you very much, Madam Ambassador Auriane Chiombori-Quao.
Thank you for having me.
Again, we want to remind that VOA reached out several times for comments from the African Union Office of the Spokesperson, the Office in charge of Communication, as well as the Office of the Chief of Staff for the Chairman, Moussa Faki, via phone calls and emails, but no response. And that's all for us this week. On behalf of my co-hosts, Haiti Adams-Fitzpatrick and Ayan Bior, and everyone here at Our Voices and VOA, thanks for watching. Good day.